My name is Marcus, and if I ever wondered where I really stood with my folks, that question got answered the afternoon I stumbled across their estate documents. It wasn't some formal family meeting where they sat me down and explained things. Nope, I found out completely by chance, in the most gut-wrenching way possible. This whole mess started about 4 months back when I was over at their place in Portland. The same place I'd been helping them maintain financially for the better part of 6 years. The mortgage payments, the utility bills when they ran short, even hiring contractors to fix their constantly breaking HVAC system. I was the one holding everything together while my younger brother Tyler did absolutely zilch. And when I say zilch, I mean it in the most literal sense. No employment, no contribution to the household, just coasting through life expecting everything to materialize out of thin air. Which, let's be real, my parents seemed perfectly content to provide for him. That particular afternoon, I was helping my old man organize some financial documents because, as usual, neither of them could figure out how to manage their own paperwork. He'd asked me to scan a bunch of legal stuff, and I was going through it without really paying attention until one folder caught my eye. It was labeled Estate Planning, Final Will and Testament, sitting right there in the middle of the pile. Look, I'm not typically the type to go snooping through private documents, but after 6 years of keeping their entire financial situation from collapsing, I figured I had some right to understand how they'd structured things for the future. So I opened it. The words I read felt like a punch to the gut. Everything, and I do mean every single asset, was going straight to Tyler. The house in Portland, their retirement accounts, their investment portfolio. There wasn't a single line mentioning me, except for some generic platitude about cherishing both our sons equally. Yeah, equally. That's exactly why they made sure their precious baby boy would inherit everything while the son actually preventing their financial ruin didn't even warrant a footnote. I felt like the world's biggest idiot. There I was, sacrificing my own financial security for them, making sure their mortgage got paid every month, ensuring they never went without groceries, while they quietly planned a future where I received absolutely nothing. And Tyler? He wasn't just unemployed, he was completely entitled. Never lifted a finger to help them, never contributed a single dollar, but somehow he'd convinced them he deserved the whole inheritance. Maybe it was because he's the baby of the family. Maybe they'd always coddled him more. Maybe he just knew exactly which buttons to push with them. Whatever the explanation, they'd made their decision crystal clear. I sat there staring at those papers, my hands literally shaking with this mixture of fury and complete betrayal. How long had this been their plan? Had they always seen me as nothing more than their personal ATM with zero expectation of gratitude or reciprocation? Did any of my efforts over the years actually matter to them? I don't know how long I'd been sitting there when my dad finally noticed I wasn't scanning anything. "Hey Marcus, what's the holdup?" he asked, walking back into the den. I didn't even try to hide the will. I held it up and locked eyes with him. "So this is the situation?" I said, my voice weirdly calm. "Everything goes to Tyler. After 6 years of keeping you afloat financially." Dad's face went completely white for a second, but then he let out this long sigh like I was some toddler throwing a tantrum. "Marcus, you're misunderstanding this." "Really?" I snapped. "Because it seems pretty straightforward to me. I've been covering your mortgage, helping with groceries, paying for repairs while Tyler contributes nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who deserves anything." Dad looked uncomfortable, but instead of actually explaining himself, he just muttered, "It's more complicated than you realize." That was it. No apology, no real justification beyond those meaningless words. Just a weak excuse and this expectant look, like he was waiting for me to drop the whole thing and go back to being their walking checkbook. I should have stormed out right then, but I needed to hear it from both of them. I called out for my mom. When she walked in and saw the will in my hands, her reaction wasn't much better. At least she had the decency to look somewhat guilty, but the words that came out of her mouth made my blood absolutely boil. "Marcus, sweetheart, you don't need this inheritance," she said in this gentle tone, like she was doing me some huge favor. "You have a solid career, you're self-sufficient. Tyler, well, he struggles with things. We just want to ensure he's taken care of when we're gone." That was the exact moment something inside me completely shattered. They weren't even denying it. They knew exactly what they were doing, and in their minds, it was totally reasonable. They'd spent years enabling Tyler's complete lack of ambition, And now they were planning to reward that behavior by giving him everything while I got tossed aside like yesterday's trash. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw so hard it hurt, and set the will down on their coffee table. Got it, I said, my voice eerily steady. Good to know where I actually stand with you people. Then I turned around and walked straight out of that house, ignoring their protests as I slammed the front door behind me. They'd made their choice. Now it was my turn to make mine. I didn't return to their house after that day. Didn't call, didn't check in. For the first time in 6 years, I let them handle their own problems. If something needed fixing, they could figure it out themselves. If they needed groceries, they could find their own transportation to the store. And most importantly, when that mortgage statement arrived, I wasn't going to be the one covering it anymore. The radio silence lasted approximately 2 weeks. Initially, I think they assumed I was just sulking and would come crawling back eventually. Maybe they expected me to cool down and apologize for having the audacity to question their decision. But as the days kept passing with no word from me, and more critically, no financial assistance, you could practically feel the shift in their attitude. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed. Dad had texted, "Property tax deadline is coming up." That was it. No, hey, how have you been doing? No, we're sorry about how that conversation went. No, we genuinely appreciate everything you've done for us over the years. Just a cold, transactional message, as if I were still the walking ATM they could access whenever convenient. I stared at the screen for a moment, almost amused by how predictable they were. They genuinely believed they could just demand money like nothing had happened, that I'd keep playing my assigned role as their financial safety net even after they'd made it abundantly clear I was expendable. I calmly typed back, "I'm sure Tyler will handle it, considering the house will be his and all." It took exactly 5 minutes before my mom called. I let it ring. Then another text appeared. "Mom, Marcus, please don't be like this. We need to have a conversation." Oh, now they wanted to talk. Now that their bills were stacking up and reality was finally hitting them in the face. I waited an hour before responding. "There's nothing to discuss. You made your choice. Now you can live with the consequences." I figured that would be the end of it for the day. I'd made my position crystal clear, and there wasn't a single part of me that felt guilty about it. But then Tyler decided to get involved. His text came in late that evening, and the second I saw his name pop up, I knew it would be something obnoxious. "Tyler, dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not that serious. Just help them out like you always do." I almost laughed out loud. Not that serious? He was genuinely acting like I had no legitimate reason to be angry about this. I typed back, "No, I think you've got this covered since you're clearly the favorite." Tyler, "OMG, are you seriously upset about the will? Grow up, dude. It's just money." Oh, so now it was just money. Now that it was his to inherit, suddenly it didn't matter. The hypocrisy was absolutely astounding. I fired back. "Then you won't mind using some of that money to cover the mortgage, right?" Complete silence. A few minutes later, my mom texted again, this time going into full guilt trip mode. "Mom, Marcus, we're your parents. Family supports each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us." I had to take a deep breath to stop myself from throwing my phone across the room. Abandoning them? I'd spent 6 years making sure they never had to struggle, all while they coddled Tyler and rewarded his complete lack of effort. And now that they finally had to face the consequences of their own decisions, I was somehow the villain? I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I responded, "You made it crystal clear I wasn't really part of this family when you excluded me from the will. Now Tyler can take care of you." I could practically imagine my mom gasping dramatically at that response. She'd always had a talent for playing the victim, even when she was the one in the wrong. A few minutes later, my dad sent another text, and this one had me absolutely seething. "Dad, we're not asking for much. Just enough to cover the mortgage for a couple more months until we sort things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish. That word made my blood absolutely boil. I'd been bailing them out for 6 years, sacrificing my own financial security and time and energy to make their lives easier. I'd done everything a good son was supposed to do. And how did they repay me? By making sure I got nothing in return. And now, when I was finally standing up for myself, I was being selfish? I clenched my jaw, took a deep breath, and typed back, "No, I'm done." Then I turned off my phone. They'd made their choice. Now they were going to live with it. The silence lasted exactly one day. I knew my parents wouldn't give up that easily, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The next morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone, a bank transfer request. I frowned, unlocking my phone to check. It was from my mom. She had actually sent me a payment request, like I was some automated teller machine. The amount, $4,200. I stared at it in complete disbelief, half laughing at the sheer audacity. No message, no explanation, just a cold, shameless demand for the exact amount they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. They weren't even asking anymore. They were just assuming I'd cave. I declined it without hesitation. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it ring. Then came another text. Mom, Marcus, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it? I took my time before replying. Because it's not my responsibility anymore. Try Tyler. Another call. Declined. Then another text. Mom, we're going to lose the house if you don't help us. Oh, so now it was an emergency. After all those years of treating me like a walking wallet, now they were finally facing consequences. I typed back, maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. A few seconds later, Dad chimed in. Dad, you're really going to let your own parents become homeless? That one actually made me laugh out loud. The manipulation was so blatant, it was almost comedic. They weren't broke. They weren't about to be thrown out on the streets. They just didn't want to dip into their own savings because they'd gotten so accustomed to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, I got a text from Tyler. Tyler, dude, just send them the money already. You're making this way bigger than it needs to be. I clenched my jaw. This entitled little punk really thought he could lecture me. I typed back. You mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it? His response came fast. Tyler, you know I don't have that kind of cash right now. Oh, so now it was about affordability. He was perfectly fine with me draining my accounts, but the second it was his turn, suddenly he had nothing to offer. I replied, guess you better figure it out then, bro. You're the one they chose. No response. I went to bed feeling oddly at peace, like I'd finally broken free from years of manipulation. But the next day, things escalated dramatically. I was at work when I got a call from my apartment building's front desk. Hey, Marcus. Your parents are here? I nearly dropped my phone. What? She hesitated before adding. They're saying it's an emergency and that you won't answer their calls. Oh my God. They'd actually shown up at my apartment building just because I stopped paying their bills. I took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of my nose. Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. There was an awkward pause. They're being kind of insistent. I clenched my jaw. I don't care. They can leave. I hung up and immediately got a text from Mom. Mom, we're in the lobby. Let us up. No question, no explanation. Just another demand. I didn't reply. Another text from Mom. Marcus, we're not leaving until you talk to us. I exhaled sharply, standing up from my desk. They weren't going to back down. Fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys and headed downstairs, my blood boiling. I wasn't scared. I was furious. The sheer audacity of these people to show up at my home uninvited, demanding money like I was their personal bank account. Not even a phone call first. Not even a half-hearted apology. Just a full-on ambush. They genuinely thought they could just corner me into submission like I was some naive kid. I yanked the door open, and there they were. Mom, Dad, and of course Tyler, all standing in a tight little formation like they were about to stage some kind of family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, her classic disappointed mother, expression locked and loaded. Dad was standing rigid, hands in his pockets, his face showing a mix of frustration and entitlement, like he couldn't believe I was actually making him do this in person. And Tyler, the little leech, had the nerve to look bored, like this whole situation was just mildly inconvenient for him, like he wasn't the entire reason any of this was happening. The moment Mom saw me, she went full theatrics. Marcus, finally. We need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. No, you need to leave. She blinked, as if she physically couldn't comprehend what I'd just said. Excuse me. You heard me. My voice was calm, controlled, but firm. You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane. Dad let out a sharp scoff. Are you really going to let us lose the house over some petty grudge? I let out a cold laugh. Petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills, but not good enough to be in your will? That grudge. Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I'd just physically assaulted her. Marcus, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? You mean best for Tyler? Just say it. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Eric, who'd been weirdly quiet up until now, finally spoke up. Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything. I turned to him, finally letting loose. No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you. You're 30 years old, Tyler. Get a damn job. His face turned red. Dude, what the hell? I took a step closer. You heard me. You want to inherit the house? Start acting like a homeowner. You want to be the golden child? Start paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal bank. Tyler looked away, suddenly very interested in the pavement. Mom took a deep breath, recalibrating her guilt trip. Marcus, he's your brother. I nodded. Yep, and I've supported him longer than you ever have. Dad's face darkened. You're being incredibly selfish. I laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between them. You two decided that Tyler deserved everything and I deserved nothing. And now that it's time to pay the price for that choice, you're trying to manipulate me into fixing it for you. Not happening. Mom's voice sharpened. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly accept that I was betrayed and keep paying your bills? Because let's be honest, that's what you wanted. Dad stepped forward, trying to loom over me like he used to when I was a kid. Marcus, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I looked him dead in the eye. I already did. For 6 years. And you repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lip trembled. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled, shaking my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that I was never family to you. Just a paycheck. Silence again. A suffocating, undeniable silence. I turned to Tyler, who was still pretending to be invisible. And you? What's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to get your life together, to contribute. But you didn't, because you knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expected me to step in, huh? Tyler finally snapped. What do you want me to say, man? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right? You didn't ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened, then closed. Nothing. He had absolutely nothing. Mom tried one last guilt trip. Marcus, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at her for a long moment before answering. Exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze. No words, no comeback, nothing. I let out a slow breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. Before I even made it back to my couch, my phone buzzed. A new text from Dad. Dad, wow. After everything we've done for you, you're really going to abandon us. I smirked, typing back. No, you abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it. I hit send, then blocked all their numbers. But I had no idea that blocking them was only going to make things worse. It didn't take long for things to spiral completely out of control. Less than 24 hours after I blocked them, I started seeing posts on Facebook. My parents had never been particularly tech-savvy, but they sure knew how to air their grievances online, especially when they were feeling self-righteous. At first, I thought it was just my parents being dramatic. That was their go-to move, after all. But the longer I scrolled through their feeds, the more I realized this wasn't just about me refusing to help with bills anymore. The posts were disguised as wholesome family content, but they were thinly veiled attacks directed at me. Mom had posted something about how she didn't raise her son to be so selfish, and how real family helps each other no matter what. A few of her friends commented with things like how I was such a disappointment and so out of touch with what really matters. Then Dad chimed in with his own post. So-called families should never turn their backs when you need them most. We gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid. He tagged me, adding a passive-aggressive, I hope you're happy at the end. But the real kicker came from Tyler. I should have known he'd get in on the drama. He shared a post that was absolutely brimming with falsehoods. Some people think family is just about money. They don't understand that family is about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents. But some people are just too wrapped up in themselves to realize that true love is about helping those who raised you. He even threw in a thinly disguised jab at me. I wish some people could learn what it really means to be family. I love my parents and I'm grateful for everything they've done. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there staring at the screen in complete disbelief. How had it gotten to this point? They'd turned this entire situation around, made me the villain, the selfish son who wasn't willing to support his sacrificial parents, the son who didn't appreciate all the love they'd given him over the years. How could they? I'd always been the one who worked hard, the one who contributed, the one who never complained. I had to swallow the fact that somehow they'd convinced themselves they were in the right, and now they were telling everyone that I was the problem. I didn't want to react immediately. I took a step back, collected my thoughts, and waited for a few hours. I wanted to make sure I wasn't just rushing into something out of pure anger. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't let them get away with this. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I was going to set the record straight. So I pulled out my phone and started typing. I opened my own Facebook account, the one I kept for close friends and actual family, and I posted a lengthy update. I wasn't interested in playing their game. I didn't want to get bogged down in petty back and forths. What I wanted to do was tell the truth. Here's what I wrote. I know I've been quiet for the past couple of weeks, but I can't stay silent any longer. My family has been sharing a lot of things online about me that are simply not true. They've portrayed me as the villain, the selfish one who refuses to help my parents in their time of need. I'm here to set the record straight. I've always helped my family. From the moment I could get a job, I've been the one helping with bills, paying for groceries, and supporting them in every way I could. But there comes a point where you can't keep giving without being respected. Over the years, I've watched my parents favor Tyler, giving him everything: the house, the money, the attention. Meanwhile, I was expected to just keep giving without ever being considered an equal. I'm sure some of you might be reading this and thinking, well, that's just how family works. But here's the truth. Family should be a two-way street. When I found out that my parents left everything to Tyler in their will, I realized how one-sided this entire relationship had been. They didn't even consider me, not even for a moment. They've made it clear that I'm just the one they can count on when things get rough, but never the one they actually want around unless it's convenient for them. For 6 years, I've been the one funding their lifestyle. I've paid for vacations, chipped in for bills, and even helped out with things like property taxes. And for what? To be treated like a backup plan? I'm done. I'm not just some wallet they can pull money from whenever they need it. I'm a human being, and I deserve respect. I've earned the right to be treated like I matter, not just when they need something from me. As for Tyler, it's time for him to grow up. He's 30 years old and has never worked a day in his life. He's never taken responsibility for anything. My parents have enabled him for so long that it's no surprise he's the one they favor. But here's the thing. He's had plenty of time to get his life together, and now it's time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. To everyone who has been following this drama and supporting my parents, you need to understand that there are always two sides to every story. Yes, family is important, but it's also about mutual respect. I've given enough for a lifetime, and I'm not apologizing for taking a step back. This is not me turning my back on family. This is me finally choosing myself. And to my parents, I wish you the best, but I am done being your doormat. I hit post, and instantly I felt a sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I was telling the world the truth about my family, about how they'd taken advantage of me for years, how they'd always expected me to be the one to save them without ever once thinking about what I needed. I wasn't going to let their narrative control my life anymore. The reactions were instant. Some people who I hadn't talked to in years came forward to express their support. A few of my cousins, friends of my parents, even some distant relatives liked the post, sending me private messages telling me they were sorry for what I'd been through. It felt so freeing to finally have the truth out there, to not be buried under guilt trips and manipulative behavior. But then came the backlash. My parents and Tyler went absolutely ballistic. Tyler messaged me, "You're a traitor. You really had to air all our business out like this. You have no respect for family." Dad called me, practically yelling into the phone, "You've ruined everything, Marcus. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family." But I didn't regret it. Not for a second. I blocked them all. I was done. And for the first time in my life, I was free. Free from the toxic grip they'd had on me for so long. As the days passed, I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. I was done with being treated as less than. I was done with being the one who was always expected to fix everyone else's problems. And now, I finally had the freedom to live my own life on my terms. So no, I don't feel bad for cutting them off. I deserve better. I still do. And from now on, I'm choosing to surround myself with people who appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can give them. It's time for me to move forward. For good. And I will.